At the turn of independence in Africa, the Cold War between the Western and the Eastern blocs was at its peak, and the newly independent African nations were forced to make a choice either to declare allegiance to the East or to the West. Colonization was perpetuated mainly by the Western countries. At independence, most African countries gravitated towards the Eastern Bloc of nations. The continent at the time, on the most part, belonged to the Non-Aligned Movement, NAM, under the former African Organization of African Unity, AOU. But individual countries had loyalties divided along the Cold War lines. The Cold War divide lasted only until the Communist Eastern Bloc of Nations Union crumbled, symbolically ending with the collapse of the Berlin Wall that divided Western and Eastern Germany. With the end of the Cold War, Africa's hopes as a result of dependence on the Eastern Bloc were dashed. The next phase of the African Renaissance happened almost immediately in the post-Cold War era. This period was marked by a new international order dictated by the dominance of multilateral organizations in the affairs of recipient African countries. Therein entered multilateral lenders, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund, IMF. The African leaders subjected their economies to structural adjustment programs, SAPs, prescribed by the multilateral institutions. Under extremely stringent measures, a one-size-fits-all economic remedy was the prescription to reverse and correct structural deficiencies in African economies. The Structural Adjustment Program was meant for African governments to downsize their civil service, cut subsidies to local farmers, education, health, and transportation. The impact of the removal of subsidies was almost immediate. Stable food prices spiked as the output of farmers began to fall due to a high cost of inputs due to removal of subsidies, leading to food shortages. Retrenchment packages of laid-off civil servants ran out, and the high cost of living made it hard for the citizens to access basic services such as education for their children, healthcare, and infrastructural facilities. From independence, most African countries had adopted socialist philosophies of governance, and development models were tailored after the Eastern Bloc, with centralized economic planning and power concentration. On the flip side, SAPs were Western-style economic systems. SAPs required devolution of power from the center and the release of innovative energies of the people to achieve their utmost potential. In spite of SAP's best intentions, most of the implementers were lost in the new environment. They were trying to develop a new model and culture of business. By the same token, the people and the policies were intended appeared to be confused with the process and the goals of the program. Further, the structure adjustment programs were not properly thought through, and their management lacked expertise and the technical know-how. The impact on citizens was negative. For instance, most civil servants who had used their retrenchment packages to start their own businesses crashed. They neither had the mindset or no experience in private sector management and in the dictates of a competitive free market. These conditions resulted in unrest all around and became the festering ground for the perpetuation of military governments through coup d'etats. Many countries of Africa had now turned to constitutional rule and holding elections and respecting the results in ways that had been certified as free and fair by the international community.